Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wait What We're Talking About podcast, episode 231. My name is Bret, aka Enigma911, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma911, where we go live. You can join in on the fun and conversation. If you drop a follow over there, you'll get notified. But if you can't catch live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and puts one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Not last but not least, any way you can support the show, like, share, subscriptions, all that jazz. It may seem small, but it does help the channel grow. So if you take the time to do that, we would love and appreciate you for it. Hi. Hope everybody's having a good holiday break. Hope everybody's enjoying their time, whether it's solo, with family, with friends, whatever it may be. It is that time of the year. All the game of the year talk, stuff like that, reviewing your year. So we're flying solo this year, but we're going to be talking about what I played this year from my backlog to games from this year, as well as titles I'm looking forward to that are coming up maybe next year or after that, unfortunately, and maybe some things that we did miss. So we're going to be diving into all these titles. Obviously not talking everything I played in the year. That would take 5 ever, surprisingly. But we'll talk highlights here and there of what we played throughout the year, maybe show you guys some stuff that you guys didn't even know about, or maybe help you pick your next game or something down the line, and then we'll get to the fun stuff of game of the year. So we're going to jump into backlog / didn't really fully come out this year games first, I guess second, because first we're going to talk about games that we did miss out on, and maybe I should keep that for the second one because that's game of the year. What do I want to do? Organization's hard. You know what? Yeah, let's do the backlog first, and then we'll talk about missed titles so you kind of know going into this year's releases why they're not included, and we'll go from there. I know what I'm doing. All right, let's jump on into the list of backlog games. So there's a few just I want to hit kind of quickly off the bat, just games that I kind of played throughout the year or kind of hit numerous years. But I have Pokemon Arceus, Marvel Snap, and Fortnite. We've talked about Fortnite a lot. Jump back into it from time to time. I will say I'm playing it a bit less than I have in previous years, and I think it's just kind of getting to that point with that game. Not that it's bad or it's disinteresting. It's just kind of losing steam. Lady and I haven't played it as much. There just has been some seasons that haven't really clicked with us. The current season that's going on right now with their like samurai theme has been really interesting to dive into that map. But the previous one with the Greek stuff and the gods, it was like some things are interesting, some things aren't. And then the battle passes have been lackluster. I know they've been doing... Coming up here, Moose? No. They've been doing a few more guest characters, which is nice, but I feel like the original content that Epic has put out for those passes hasn't been as enticing as the previous entries and season passes. So that's been a little unfortunate. Also, it's getting a little bit more expensive, which I get because they're getting all these licensed characters. But Epic has so much money. They're, have no issues there. So do they really need to bump up the Battle Pass price to give the players less? No. So that's a little disheartening. Man, this cat does not want to decide if he wants to come up here or just yell at me or whatever he's doing. Okay, anyways. Along similar lines would be Marvel Snap. Just the only thing on that is Marvel Snap I've been playing pretty consistent all year. I think there was a small gap in the summer, but outside of that, it's been something I've been able to jump into, maybe play while I'm watching, a series on TV or whatnot. Play it, come in, get the quick matches there. I've enjoyed pretty much most of the seasons that they have put out. If I do decide to get their season pass for that. But I also like that you're not locked into really you have to get it or you're missing out. If you're not feeling a season, you're not feeling a season. No big deal. So that's been a good one to play. And play more of the multiplayer with friends with that game. And figure out different strategies and mess around with that. Usually Destroy deck is my go-to. I've been messing around a little bit more with the Movement deck. Discard is still something that clicks with me fully. But yeah, just fun to play that. And then Pokemon Arceus, this seems to be my go-to around the holidays. I still need to beat this game. I keep jumping back in. Every time I jump back in, I restart it, and I enjoy my time with it. It's just, it doesn't stick around. But shout out to it. I do really enjoy my time with it. And the gameplay mechanics there, we've talked about it previous years as well. Of just like, it's different, but it's actually really enjoyable how they do all the catching mechanics and all that jazz in comparison to like your traditional Pokemon games. But just want to give it a shout out here. Like I said, it's definitely something I go back to around this time. Maybe I'll do it again this year. Who knows? So moving on, I did try out Baldur's Gate 3 this year. I was playing it on stream for a while. Shout out to Turn-Based TJ. He used some channel points to redeem it. So we did give it a shot. Really enjoyed Baldur's Gate. I know I was late to the party, obviously, with it being Game of the Year. For the Game Awards or at the Game Awards last year. So playing it this year, late to the party. But another one I didn't make it all the way through. Jeez. But played a little bit here and there for streams. Really enjoyed my time with it. Enjoyed the flexibility with all of the story play elements and the characters, and obviously the amount of freedom that Larian had designed into the game. I had just reached a point where, unfortunately, the avenue I wanted to take was not an avenue available to me, and I got a little frustrated with that in terms of there's all this crazy things you can do, or all these crazy things you can do in terms of freedom, whether it's talking to certain animals or really going about your way to strategize and do something without even getting in a combat altercation with bigger groups of people. There was that flexibility, and for something that I thought was a good strategy, and we've talked about it on multiple podcasts, whether it was Big John joined the podcast or back even before that when I kind of wrapped up Baldur's Gate, for something I thought was a pretty logical process for me to go through, try and do to make peace with something, wasn't an option, and I didn't get rewarded for thinking outside the box or taking those means to really make sure that I wasn't messing something up. And then it didn't happen. It just was like, that along with the difficulty spike I had hit at that point, just kind of hit a wall with it. I was like, nah, I'm good. Something I do want to go back to and try, maybe on my own, not on stream. That could have been also an element there where I felt not pressured, obviously, but it's a performance. Oh boy, that sounds weird. Performance, you got to do a stream, but obviously you're a little bit more active during the live streams, where sometimes you want to just kind of take your time, and for games like this with the role-playing games, just kind of not zone out, but you really want to focus on those types of things or those elements of the game and go from there. Come up here, Moose. Everybody wants to see you. They love you. So shout out to Baldur's Gate 3. Just quick shout out. This was the first year I went to PAX East. Hope to do it this coming year, but we'll see. But just a quick shout out to the games that I did play there. We had Hell of an Office, Chicken Police, Ollie Frog, Toad Skater, which absolutely love, Right to Bear Arms, Part of You, Corgi Cozy Hike, Dark and Deep, Anton Blast, and Juice. We also jumped into Venture of the Vile, which did come out this year, but cool experience to jump into those games, talk to the devs a little bit more about their experience in making it, and just their journey in making the games and getting it out for, in our hands in the general public beyond just the early access test. So that was cool. And speaking of early access, Steam Next Fest demos as well. There was a bunch there. Hell's Gate, Cat Needs, Anti-Paint, Doodle Harmony, Ghost, Crash Course Builder, Artificer's Tower, Pepper Grinder, Push a Block, Kill a Million Rats, Tiny Town, and Angerfoot. I know some of those got their full releases this year as well, across numerous consoles. So if any of those caught your attention or eye, go check those out. Okay, surprising one. Final Fantasy VII OG. I finally jumped into that. Did I finish it? No, I'm awful. No, I was doing great. I kept jumping into it, playing. I got out of Midgard, excuse me, and got into the fields, got where you need to kind of wrangle a chocobo, and that's where I stopped. Yikes! I think what was coming up was I was supposed to play Remake on stream. That didn't last super long either. And I was like, well, I want to kind of make it through OG first so I can see what the comparisons are from the original, what's changed with Remake, go from there. And I really enjoyed my time with it in comparison to past attempts, which I think I've talked about on stream as well, perhaps with Jeff. But yeah, it was just me being dumb and like, ooh, what's the next thing? I'm, go on to the next thing. Don't be focused and finish this. But I did enjoy my time with Final Fantasy VII OG. I'm curious, because I don't know where Remake ends. I'm curious if the point I got in original was the point of completion of Remake. If maybe I should bounce back and forth between them, the original and Remake. Probably not a good idea. I know Rebirth came out this year. But yeah, just wanted to shout that out. Enjoyed it, but did a bad job keeping up with it. All right. Another one I shout out is Cult of the Lamb. Came out a few years ago. 2 years ago? I don't know. And I played it through solo back then because I was very excited for it, and it was a great game. But Lady in Wonderland wanted to play it, so we ended up playing co-op. It was conveniently, she wanted to play it right around the time that the co-op update came out with the GOAT. So we played that through all the way together. That was fun. They had a lot of free updates. I realized that I never jumped into. So like the Midas Gold edition was in there. I think the Sin update had come out not too much longer before. So there's a lot of new mechanics that we got to mess around with as well. So it was nice to have new gameplay stuff to myself, as well as obviously the mechanics that I had known from the first playthrough. Kept that interesting for me instead of just being like, yep, I'm here. But we put a lot of time into that. I don't think it got to my top 5 for PlayStation Wrapped, but it was up there. We put a decent amount of time into that. Speaking of putting a decent amount of time into stuff, also put a decent amount of time into Vampire Survivors, which I'm actually skipping ahead, so never mind. I didn't say that. What else did we play that came out in previous years? Sorry, I got like 3 lists ahead of me. My one giant list, because I'm old and I can't remember things, so I keep a list on my phone of like, what did I play this year? What did I beat? What came out this year? And then I have it separated out to like, these are backlog titles, this is game of the year. So if you see me looking across the screen here, that's why. So I do apologize. Finally tried Celeste. Someone's chatty. Finally tried Celeste out this year. Another one. Dumb me getting distracted and not finishing the game there. But did play that. Made it a few levels through and then shared the experience with Justin at Inverted Lantern, who's been on the podcast before. It seems like he got really into it, and I believe he did beat it and play it all the way through. So that was just a nice experience of like, obviously me enjoying the game, but then also showing it to someone else and having them have a great time with it as well. That was nice. I don't know, made me happy. When you realize your list isn't complete, because I could think of a game that's not on here. Speaking of indies that I got to the party late and kind of passed on as well to others is Dredge, which, yeah, I guess I just did not put that in my list. I don't know why. No, it's right there. I don't know where I went with this one. Oh, I know why it's not in here. Because it's in beaten games. That makes sense. Dredge. Yes, we did beat Dredge. Played that on stream during Spooky Time, during October. Man, what a great fishing game. I didn't think fishing games could be as fun as Dredge is. But it's a blast to just go through, upgrade the boat, kind of discover what the hell is even going on in this area. Not just with the creepy fish, but with all the people around. You have your main town in the center that you're trying to help out with the fisherman duties, but then you have these 4 regions surrounding it that each have like their own little miniature conundrum that you have to help with that, figure out what's going on there, whether it's healing a brother's relationships, saving a crashed war veteran who has their plane crashed there, a random underwater like researcher, and then a fucking cult just up in one corner. Going through all of that to then also learn what kind of twisted things are also going on around everywhere with this man in his book. I had a great time with Dredge. I know there's some DLC out there. I think the Iron Rig DLC dropped this year. I don't know if I'll jump into it. I'm weird with DLC where if I feel like I've kind of gotten that check mark of like, yep, I'm satisfied with this experience, sometimes I don't really feel like diving into the DLC, especially if it comes out later. Granted, this stuff's already out, so I'm not sure. We'll have to see if I do eventually dive into it. But Dredge was an amazing time. I really had a fun time going around there. And then I know Blue Mudhorn has delved into it as well, and he beat it in no time. So cool once again to share that experience. Shootout. I mean, it's a shooting game. Shout out to Super Animal Royale once again. Or not once again, but as well. This was one I jumped into during Extra Life, and it was a lifesaver during those late hours of the 24-hour stream. Another one that's been out for quite some time. I feel like it's been out maybe 3 years more. Top-down battle royale where you're all cute little animals, and you are aiming with your joystick. It's like a twin-stick shooter almost. And just very simple battle royale. Very fun. There's a lot of animal types that you can unlock, customize your character with, which is very rewarding. A little grindy, for sure, but I don't feel like the games or matches last ever super duper long, so it's not something where you're going to put all this work in, and then it just kind of drags on. But just wanted to give that a shout out for how fun it was during Extra Life. Same with Power Wash Simulator. Jump back into that. I know that was a highly regarded game of mine last year, so not going to spend too much time on it, but I can't recommend Power Wash Simulator enough. Seems silly, like just washing things, and whether it's vehicles or parks or houses or whatever, seems like a very silly concept as a game of like, yeah, that's going to be a rewarding experience, but it most definitely is. Those little pings when you get different elements cleaned up makes the endorphin rush. And completing, or seeing rather, your completed job when you're done, whether it's just you by looking around being like, damn, I cleaned all of this, or at the very end seeing like the not fast forward, I guess it is, that fast quick playback of your whole experience. That's always fun to see too. So shout out to Power Wash. Next one we got is Black Myth Wukong, one we're currently streaming over on Twitch. At least we were in the month of December. I think I'll probably still have a bit left for January. Enjoying my time with that. Wait a minute, Black Myth came out this year. Someone didn't copy it over. God damn it. These lists are not organized. Whoop. Scratch that again. Brother. Let's see what else we got in the backlog. Fallout 4. We finally beat that on stream. Another one of the Fallout series that kind of dipped my toes in here and there. I had a good time going through Fallout 4 in its entirety, along with Ghostwire Tokyo. Tried out the OG Saints Row. Not OG, but the remake of Saints Row 1. Not as bad as everybody kind of made it out to be, I feel. When it first came out, I think it was a good time. It definitely did not have the character that I feel like 3 and 4 had, for example. So that was probably something that went against it. But all in all, it was an okay game. I had a good time with it. It was one of those, as we love to talk about, turn your brain off and just kind of go with games. So I had a fun time with that. Similar, I replayed Saints Row 4. We have some funny ones here. One I actually just beat yesterday because it's a short and sweet experience. Started at Extra Life, played it fresh from the start, but Turnip Boy commits tax evasion. Yep, you heard me right. Turnip Boy commits tax evasion. Fun little indie here, top down. I guess you could say Metroidvania. Not really Metroidvania. What would you call it? I don't know. It's like a lot of fetch questy. Hey, I need this. And then you go do that thing and solve a puzzle here. And then you go to this one, do that thing. Da, 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 da. And you're doing these little tasks for the mayor because guess what? You committed tax evasion. So now you got to kind of make up for it. So you're doing these little tasks, going around, doing other tasks for villagers. Shorter game, I'd say maybe 3 hours, maybe 4 if you're really struggling. But I had a fun time with it. There's a lot of funny comedy moments in there. And surprisingly, a story twist. Wouldn't expect that with that game. There is a sequel out called Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, which I think I've heard has a little bit more different gameplay mechanics. I believe it's a roguelite. I don't know for sure, but I want to jump into that. Unfortunately, that's not on my preferred console just yet. I don't know if it's planned to be on it. Worst comes to worst, I'll pick it up on Steam. But definitely money's worth there. It was a fun time. No. All right. Also, quick, just touch base here. Played through Super Mario Sunshine for the first time all the way through. That got frustrating at points with the platforming. Went back and did Ghostwire Tokyo. Had a great time there. Saving the city in Tokyo and hunting down these ghosts and whatnot. Replayed A Little to the Left, organizational game and puzzle game that has an occasional cat that will mess with you. Brotato took up a lot of my time this year. I'm kind of ashamed it took, not took, because I haven't beaten it entirely, but put 100 hours into that game this year. Very satisfying. If you liked Vampire Survivors, which I alluded to earlier, you are just a little egg dude, even though it's called Brotato. I know. Little egg dude, and you power up as you go. You can have up to 6 weapons. You upgrade them and get different stat boosts, positive and negative throughout, trying to survive 20 waves of enemies. Great time there. Replayed through Mortal Kombat 1 to then eventually go through the story DLC, which we'll talk about later. Save Room I played, which is a Resident Evil-like storage simulator, so another very short one. I think that one took me an hour to get the platinum, but you're just managing your inventory. You got to fill it out, get all the items in there. All right, and then we got some heavy hitters to round out the list here. We're going to start with Lies of P. This kind of, kind of was my Souls-like year. Now, for you guys that don't know my history with Souls, I always enjoy them. I enjoy the atmosphere and the scenery and like the theming that these worlds provide and the environments, but boy do I suck at them. I always get to a certain point and then I kind of hit that rock wall and I'm like, it's getting too frustrating. I can't beat this thing. I'm just done. I think Sekiro is probably the one I made it the most farthest in. Last year, where I got to 2 bosses, there was like a poison warlock in like a underground cave, or the whole arena was poisoned or something along those lines. Couldn't beat them. And then the other boss was, I don't even remember. Nope, my memory's ass. But I had like 2 different paths I could go along, and just that was where I hit my wall eventually. But Lies of P was a little bit different. We're going to be talking about a lot of Souls, like whether it was the backlog games or, surprisingly, the games that came out this year. But this is the first one that we're going to talk about, obviously. But Lies of P hit differently. Number 1, I think, was the storytelling. With the Souls games, you obviously have the story that is going on, but for most of it, it seems like you have to really hunt it down through text or the item descriptions or just kind of other means than the game actually telling you what is going on, giving you those cinematics, those narrative moments where it's pushing its story, its narrative. And that can be a little frustrating at times, but I feel like Lies of P delivers that here, and it makes it even more satisfying to keep going, even if you're dying, to push through, battle it out, see where this story is going, see where the narrative's taking you, and I really appreciated that. And I did end up beating this one and playing it all the way through on stream, even though bosses like Lexasia and fucking King of Puppets and Romeo, even though they absolutely destroyed me. VOD up on YouTube, by the way, right now. Might even be up in full at this point. Even though those guys destroyed me and just killed me over and over and over again, I felt so motivated by seeing this narrative through that I pushed through and, got to the ending and had the little fun surprise there, which I'll keep to myself unless you want to watch the VOD. You could check that out. And just was so satisfied with the entire experience that the team and the developers did with that game. I'm looking forward to seeing what their next project is. NeoWiz hasn't even lit out a peep of what's going on. But if it's it also felt pretty welcoming in terms of a newbie. So if this is a genre that you've been wanting to get into, I think while this still has a lot of challenge, I think this is one that may be helpful. There's another one I'm going to talk about in this year's releases that for sure is a more welcoming experience. But this one, I felt like it wasn't impossible as in compared to others. So I would definitely highly recommend it and enjoyed my time with Liza P. Another one I want to talk about here is Resident Evil 4 Remake. We've talked about RE in the past and my history with it, with RE7 being my first, then kind of bouncing around with RE2 Remake, RE3 Remake, Resident Evil 8, and now RE4 Remake. Another one I had a great time with, Ashley, learning how to deal with her and manage her along this journey was interesting. Not as scary as some other Resident Evils, certainly had moments, but I felt overall not too bad. More focused on the action side of things in comparison to the earlier remakes, which makes sense. But I had a good time jumping through that. If you want to check out that full playthrough, those VODs are over on YouTube, so you can check that all out. But I had a blast with RE4 Remake. And this was one, I had so much fun with it. I delved right back into it after we were done on stream and started playing it again off stream, just to go through, kind of get the rest of the collectibles, get different weapons that I hadn't purchased yet, and things of that nature. Unfortunately, I have fallen off of that since then, but for like a week or two, I was on that grind and almost played it all the way through again. Using primarily the pistol. But yeah, I had a blast with it. Next one I was looking really forward to in the past. Started, I think, launch day, and then just kind of dipped off just because the passion wasn't there for it. But I'm glad I gave it another try. It was my distraction game around November time. If you get it, you get it. And it definitely did its job, and I wrapped it up not too long ago, but I'm talking about Jedi Survivor. Absolutely loved Jedi Fallen Order, and I think I can say the same for Jedi Survivor. I continue the narrative here with Cal and the kind of few year gap between Fallen Order and this one, so he's gone on and is tackling his path, but eventually you reconvene with your ragtag group of friends from the first game, see how they've been living during this time and what they've been going after. So that was rewarding, getting those reunions with those characters and just falling right back into those relationships with Cal, and you could see what it meant to him, like to have them as family, but also seeing just in general Cal's journey throughout this game. It's a nice 3-act structure, at least it felt that way, where you have the initial, obviously, build of the story, what's going on here. The second middle section where you're tackling this evil and trying to get the advantage, heading into Act 3 where it may have things happen and you need to come to gather your strength and, come back even stronger to overtop the evils that are ahead of you. Had a great time with it. I usually don't get too much into cosmetics with these games. It's going to sound silly, but I like having it be the skins or the attire that the developers wanted there. So, for example, like Spider-Man, I often don't customize my Spider-Man with his suit all that often until post-game where I'm doing all the cleanup. I'll typically just run with the suits that they give me. Jedi Survivor, I thought that was what I was going to do, but I kind of ended up changing Cal as he went through his journey. So he kind of had his base look at the beginning. The next part, I gave him like a top bun and a little bit more of a Jedi look as part of the council. And then at the end, I gave him like a full, like not rags to riches, but like what's the word? Not retribution. I guess that's the right word. Clean cut, real clean armor looking, also kind of Jedi garb with a different color set. So I changed how he looked the entire time, and I changed the lightsaber. I think I talked about it in the individual podcast that I talked about Jedi Survivor. I wish you could set presets with the lightsabers so you can have all these different ones. But it was really, I think it really added to the experience to customize him throughout that journey. And this is the first time I've had an experience like that where I felt like that was not rewarding, but worthwhile of my time to put in the time to customize him and kind of get more into the role-playing aspect, I guess you could say. So Jedi Survivor, absolutely loved. Hated that I waited so long to play it, but a good time there. I think I have one more that I want to shout out here. One more indie title. It's Born of Bread from Wild Art Games. Kind of like a a Paper Mario like, from what I've heard from others. You have your different characters, turn-based combat, go through, solve puzzles. Little Metroidvania here and there where you're going back and forth between areas, but a fun story overall. I wanted to shout this one out because it was a lot of fun, a little buggy here and there, but sadly Wild Art Studios has not closed permanently, but they're not full-time anymore, and that's too bad. They just couldn't, unfortunately, sustain themselves. So I did want to give this team a shout and this game. If you like Paper Mario, you like the turn-based combat, you just want some cute artwork and some great characters with a good story, this is a game I highly recommend. Not super long as well. I'd say maybe an 8 to 10, that kind of range. But I had a blast with it. It's something I'm still chasing towards the platinum here and there and getting 100%. But I've had an amazing time playing it throughout. So just wanted to shout out Born of Bread there. So in general, or overall, I think those were the standouts for the backlog / last year's games that I happened to play this year. I'm just going to quickly scroll through, see if there's anything else that does catch my attention that I want to give a quick shout to that I haven't already. I think I've hit most of them, but just in case, doesn't hurt to double check. Nah, I think we hit all of them. Yeah. So what is my game of the year in terms of backlog titles? What's the one that stood out amongst the rest as like something that I really enjoyed? I think it's Lies of P. I think Lies of P is going to take it here. Once again, being the first Souls game that I have played all the way through, jumped back in with a new game plus to try and do things differently, collect all the other stuff that I didn't get, do the lie run. I just had an amazing time, and once again, what they set up here with their narrative and rewarding the player by showing that narrative as you go along and not make them hunt for it, and what is on the docket for an eventual sequel, I'll just say that, has me so excited to see what this team does. I remember when Lies of P was first announced, maybe Game Awards, maybe Summer Games Fest, I don't know. I was just like, that's ridiculous. A Pinocchio game and it's Souls. Oh my God, this is going to be idiotic. but to actually jump into it, it has been an amazing experience. So Lies of P is going to take Game of the Year for me for the backlog games. Great time. Highly recommend. So let's move over to 2024. So what is going on this year that I want to talk about and give Game of the Year to here? So not as much or not as many titles this year in comparison to the backlog list. But let's get on into it. Just some quick shouts to start from games from PAX East that did make their full release here that maybe I didn't play all the way through. I have two. I got Animal Well and Venture to the Vile. Animal Well, fun in terms of art style and interest. Another Metroidvania. I'm going to use that word a lot, I guess. Kind of chill vibes in a way. Puzzle game. You're a little blob. You're going through the forest, trying to figure out these puzzles. Deal with monsters that you might run into. And seems like find a lot of secrets that Billy Basso, the developer, has hid into this game. I enjoyed my time with it in the demo at PAX. I did get it when it released, and I just haven't jumped into it since. So that's something, when I find the time, I would like to hop into. Similar to that is Venture the Vile. It's a side-scrolling, I guess you could say, beat 'em up. The interesting factor here is the setting. You're in this town, and everybody wears like these animal masks. So you have a deer mask. I believe your friend has a fox. Ooh, I can't remember. But you end up gathering resources for your village. You fall into this pit where you meet this monster. The monster grabs your hand and makes you kind of corrupted and turns it into a blade. And then as you kind of figuring out what's going on, why is there darkness around the village and what has come to be. It released, and I don't know for sure, but I think this studio may have gone under, which is really unfortunate. But the game's still up there if you do want to try it. I know it was originally planned for consoles. With the studio closing, I don't think that's very likely, obviously, if that's what happened. But it is on Steam still, so I want to check it out eventually and give that a try. So those were the two PAX-specific ones. Very simple shout-out, but WWE 2K24, very similar to how last year's conversation of 2K23 went. This was my top game this year. I think it was 160 hours or so. 95% of that probably being GM mode. Had a great time making the matchups, drafting the different rosters. I think 2K is doing a lot better with providing content throughout the year, obviously with their DLCs, but then also the Persona cards that they added this year. A lot of discussion we can have about the My Faction mode, the pros and cons there, where these Persona cards are locked behind. It was a cool idea of a way to get players to play that mode more. I know I certainly did, but it is absolutely ridiculous the amount of microtransactions or how much the in-game currency these things cost. So it is so grindy. I'm forgetting the user, but shout out to the 2K community. There's a guy who's been making videos about My Faction, like, this is the best match to grind out XP in, or the My Faction points. And it's nice, but it's like, even still, it's so slow of only getting 600 of those things in a quick span of minutes. It's like, okay, I did the math, and you can get 20,000 in like this many hours of gameplay. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that just for an alternate CM Punk to get This Fire Burns, even though that theme song is a banger. Yeah, so a lot of good came out of 2K24. Some bad did as well. Hopefully, feedback, they'll take that. Speaking of the roguelikes, or not the roguelikes, the Souls-likes. Let's talk about a great one here. I talked about the welcoming attitude of Lies of P. Wow, it's a welcome to new players. I think this one may have one-upped it. It's called Another Crab's Treasure. You are Krill. Krill has had their house stolen, unfortunately, by the higher powers of the government. I don't remember if this is a tax thing or whatever, but he gets his shell stolen, his home, and this is just Krill's journey to get his home back. And you'd think that'd be simple. All right, just go, appeal to the court or whatever you need to do. No, unfortunately, there is a lot of, what's the term? A lot of dumping of, like goods and whatnot into the water sources, which is corrupting the animals down below in the ocean. And Krill runs into these things and has to defend himself with a tiny little fork that he's found. And it's just your journey to get his home back and return safely to where he was hanging out. Another Crab's Treasure is fantastic. Another one that has a great story as you're going through. The reason this game is so accessible is it's easy to play. And also, if you're having a real tough time, you can trigger Krill to have a gun, and you can one-shot things. Now, granted, you'll still have to dodge, you'll still have to avoid all that jazz if you need be, but you could just pull out a gun at any point with the options and just whoosh. So if there's a boss that's giving you a really hard time or a lot of enemies ahead of you that you just don't want to rerun through, whatever it is, you can turn this on and it makes this thing a whole lot more accessible. Blast your way through and get to a point where you feel safe. Another Crab's Treasure is fantastic. I have not beaten it, but I want to give it that shout. Now, before I continue into my 2024 list, let's talk about some games that I missed from this year. Just so you know, hey, they're not in the running for Game of the Year eventually. So real quick, just going through the list, games I did miss. I talked about being excited about it last year. It has not come to my platform of choice, unfortunately, but Little Kitty Big City I have missed out on. Fun, goofy game where you're a cat just trying to get back to your apartment, but you gotta figure out how to do it. Hysterical one next, just in the title alone, but Squirrel with a Gun. Yep. Banisher's Ghost of New Eden. Title came out. I think it's a couple. One is a ghost. The other one is like a ghost hunter. And the two of you, using both of your power sets, are trying to free these spirits and souls from the world around you. Looked like a cool concept in terms of story. We talked about Animal Well already. Just haven't delved into that further. Cat Quest 3 dropped. Pretty much the pirate cat quest. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Obviously haven't played Final Fantasy VII OG or Remake, so that makes sense. Talked about Venture the Vile. Anotria, The Last Song. Another Soulsborne. But it is bright as hell, and not everything is dark, gloomy, and depressing. The cool factor with Anotria, it is Italian Renaissance, and there's a lot of masks, and the masks come into play huge. So instead of having just one power set, you can swap your mask and you can change what your character looks like, how they fight, their weapon set, whatnot. So I want to jump into that. Planet Coaster 2 dropped this year. Really enjoyed my time with Planet Coaster 1 over on Steam. I've talked about how I wanted the Planet Coaster series to have a little bit more of a story to kind of chase after or objectives. Don't know if 2 changes that or if it just gives you a whole updated creative suite, but regardless, want to jump into that at some point and just zone out, make some parks, build some rides. And then the last one that was a complete surprise, and I think I might even talked about this on a past podcast of like remasters we're never gonna see. Warcraft 1 and 2 got remastered. Holy shit, I need to jump on these. No, I'm not going online and fighting people, but just to relive the story of 1, the story of 2 as a adult. But I had such good times with that growing up. Shout out to Papa Griff for showing me those. We have talked about Warcraft 3's remaster coming out, I believe, last year, not being super duper great. I don't know if they fixed it since. But I haven't heard as much or if any flack about the 1 and 2 remasters. So want to jump into that and just have a great time. Okay, jumping back into games I did play from 2024, we have Cryptmaster. So Cryptmaster I learned about from the 6-1 Indie Crew, shout out to them. Puzzle game where you are dealing with the Cryptmaster, an undead Grim Reaper-esque personnel down in the depths of hell with you. He has found you and 3 compatriots and has tricked you into getting him up to the surface. You have to dungeon crawl your way through and use different words that you type out to battle different enemies with spells or abilities that you have learned with your 4 characters, and tackle different puzzles and get different treasures and loot using this type-based system. To talk to the Cryptmaster, ask him to describe certain objects, smell, taste, lick, I don't know what I'm even going for here with the joke. Just, do whatever. You type those in, and you have this funny back and forth with the Cryptmaster as you're going through here. Another one I didn't make it all the way through. Played it on stream. Got a little frustrated with the puzzles and my dumb brain not being able to think of anything. So we did stop it there. It originally was on PC. I believe it is now also on console. And they make some of the typing a little bit easier there, so definitely recommend that. One that I did play, or actually 2 I did play, that didn't really necessarily click with me, but they might click with you. They are 2 other indie titles. We have Pacific Drive. You are a delivery guy, I believe, who goes into this zone, or rather gets sucked into this zone, where a lot of anomalies are happening. Storms, random mannequins, other environmental hazards are around, and you are trying to find your way out of this locked stormy area. It's you and your station wagon, I guess is the right term, going through, driving around, gathering resources to improve your station wagon as well as progress the story. It's kind of roguelite-esque where you go out, do these runs, don't die, escape back to your safe haven. I thought I would really enjoy that gameplay loop, and it just was not working for me. But I can see why people would really enjoy this, so definitely want to shout it out. Second one is a similar one where I understand the comedy is really funny. It's just the gameplay itself and the navigation that they give you, aka none, not my most favorite. And that title is Thank Goodness You're Here. If you guys like British comedy, just very raunchy style of comedy with a cute art style, this is a fun game. I had a good time with it for the parts I did play. It just got to a point where I was very lost. I didn't know which way I was supposed to go when they announced this game. I knew it was going to be very checkboxy. Go here, do this. Go here, do this. Oh, you got here, do this. Kind of like a chain of events where you're helping that one first person. You get to the second person, they need help, so you help them, which gets you to a third person who needs help. And then eventually you would work your way back up to eventually helping that first person by helping the third, by helping the second, to help the first. I thought that's how it was going to be, and there would be some sort of tell of what your progress was. That was not the case. You kind of had to hard force it, I guess you could say. Next one was one I was looking forward to from last year, was the Plucky Squire. 2D and 3D game. You are, what's his name? Pip? No, Pip's the little mouse I loved. Whatever the Squire's name is. Sorry, dude. You are part of this storybook adventure, and you're the hero of the book, but the evil wizard has figured out, this is a book, I can rewrite it, and has gone outside and is trying to harm the real world. So you learn that you can also exit the book, and it is you going in and out of this book, solving puzzles, defeating enemies, cute little narrative with your friends of defeating this big bad, Had a great time with it. Did not finish it, unfortunately. One I dipped my toe into was Star Wars Outlaws. Had a lot of people talking highly of Star Wars Outlaws and how fun it was. Granted, a lot of stealth was involved, but it was cool to take the Star Wars environments and turn it on its head in terms of your character not having the Jedi gameplay, but being a smuggler, going around, deceiving people, doing missions for others, and kind of making sure your pockets were lined with credits and becoming rich and a good smuggler. I did like the tutorial area, I guess you could say, of Outlaws. I did enjoy my time with it. Loved Nyx. Nyx was the homie. Nyx was MVP. But just at that time, it was not the game or the type of game that I wanted to play fully through. So I'd like to jump back into and need to jump back into Star Wars Outlaws. Seems like they're still changing the game up. I guess they got a new game director recently, which is weird because the game's already out. But they're going to be changing some of the mechanics there, which I don't think necessarily were bad, but perhaps if you weren't someone who wanted to play super stealthy, those changes might be for you. Shout out to 2 more indies, maybe 3. We have Vampire Hunters. This is a first-person shooter, vampire survivors-esque game, so just waves and waves and waves and waves of endless enemies. You're shooting 1, 2, 3, maybe even 12 guns at a time, blasting all these enemies around you, survive until you die. Some fun cameos in there, as we've talked about, I believe, on a previous podcast. Scorpion King, looking at you. But a good one to turn your brain off to. One I started recently is Arranger puzzle game. It's all grid based, but your character, whenever they move horizontally or vertically, that entire row or column will move along with you. So you need to figure out how to move different weaponry to defeat ghosts or move keys to unlock doors, and you're constantly moving your character around this grid to solve these puzzles. Having an absolute blast with it so far. I believe I'm in the second area story wise, and yeah, just enjoying going, okay, so if I move that, then that's gonna go there. I need to do this maneuver first, going through, figure out the puzzles, having a great time with that. And then the last indie on here for now, at least in this chunk, is one I just dipped my toe into. Pretty sure it's indie, so don't yell at me if it's not. But Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. This is one that was announced at Summer Games Fest that got me super excited. If you guys played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle TMNT Shredder's Revenge, this is the same idea with Power Rangers. Side-scrolling beat 'em up. You could play with, I don't know if you could play it 4-player, but you could play with at least one co-op friend. Go through, beat up some putties, beat up Goldar, beat up Rita, have a great old time, and have a fun, quick, old retro arcade experience with this game. I've had a fun time with it so far. If you like Power Rangers, definitely dive on into it. Alright, let's talk about one I kind of, mentioned before, but Black Myth Wukong. Another Souls I've been jumping into over on stream. Once again, been playing it for a while. We'll probably be playing it into January as well, as we have not wrapped it up yet. Souls-like in a way, but kind of boss rushy. There's a little bit of in-betweens, but I feel like I'm fighting a lot of different bosses, and I'm having an absolute blast with it. I know Black Myth got the Golden Joysticks Game of the Year award, and I also believe it got Best Action Game and Jeff Keighley's Game Awards, so people are recognizing it for what it brings to the table, and I have to echo those statements. Having a lot of fun with the combat with Sun Wukong in this game. Bosses are challenging, bosses are difficult, but I feel this hits a different level than other Souls games where I don't feel frustrated at all. It's just like, yep, okay, they got me, back into it, let's go. And I've been having a blast with it. Something I do wish that was better in this game is navigation. You can get lost, especially in that first chapter in the forest, if you're not really paying attention to your surroundings super duper well. You can get turned around very easily, and there's not a quick, easy guide as to where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to do. It's it's not hand-holdy, which I respect. You don't want something to be too hand-holdy, and it's like, I don't have any sense of discovery here. But sometimes it would be nice to just be like, I'm lost. Where do I go? But really enjoying that. Hope to continue and see the end of that game soon. Not in a bad way. And then the last one that I'm going to shout out of games that I did play from this year that I did not beat is Balatro. Huge shout out for Balatro. If you guys are not playing Balatro and you like deck builders or you like poker or roguelikes, you need to play Balatro. Very simple game. You may not, or say you may think, oh, a poker game? That's not great. You need to change that. This is not a poker game that you play against other players for chips. This is you playing against the computer to try and get high scores to get this chimp count met or surpassed, and then you going through round by round by round, going on, I think it's 8 different waves to get to that 8th wave and beat the game there. Even if you don't know poker, very welcoming. You can check at any point the cards, the ranking of like what's going to get me the most chips. Is it 2 a pair? Is it going to be 4 of a kind? Is it going to be a flush? Is it going to be a royal flush? Whatever it is, you can check that at any time. And the player, you get a whole 52 card deck, so you have a lot of options at your disposal, and as you go through the game you will get different modifiers and adjustments that will help you throughout. So that 52 card deck may build to a 65 card deck where you got a bunch of aces or whatever it might be. You will pick up joker cards throughout the game that have different modifiers that will either multiply your score or add the chip count that is available to you that for cash out. And you also have tarot cards and arcana cards, which will also buff the hands that you do play, so they can reward you more chips perhaps, or maybe things will be played twice or whatever it is. I had an absolute blast with Balatro. I got through and beat it once. There's 2 other runs I got extremely close, got right to the end and just managed to fuck it up. But Balatro has been another one of those games where you start playing it and you're like, all right, I'm going to play this for a few minutes, and it's been a few hours, but it doesn't feel like that in any negative way possible. It just demands your time in terms of this is where you are, you're going to be interested in this, and we're going to have a great time. Highly recommend Balatro for anybody who may have kind of took a glance at it and been like, I don't know if that's for me. I would at least give it a try. It's on all platforms, and I believe it is also on mobile. Don't get too addicted, but I'd recommend that. All right, let's go to the games that we did beat. Let's talk about first the one that I was looking forward to probably the most this year, and it is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Now, we do have solo podcasts more recent to when I did finish the game and beat it on stream and continue to play it off. So if you want more in the moment, around that time, reactions, those videos will probably reflect it better. Now that not rose-tinted glasses, but now that I have some time between myself and the game, I don't think it's all that bad. It is very repetitive, which is the worst part of this game. In terms of a story, I actually kind of enjoyed it. In terms of the characters, I did enjoy how they played and the different abilities they had. Graphically, it's phenomenal. You can't take that away from Rocksteady in any point. But yeah, it just kind of lacks. While the story is good and I enjoyed it, it lacks a full conclusion and a certain narrative quality that I feel Rocksteady had in the past. There's a few misses from a story point. They have since announced that they are going to stop supporting this game after year 1. I think they had more plans originally if it was to do better. But since then, all the additional characters are free and their battle passes are like not time sensitive. So you play it and get the rewards at your leisure. It's not your typical 3-month battle pass or whatever. So they have announced they did release 4 characters since launch, I believe. Joker was the first one, then it was Mr. Freeze, and then it was, I can picture how she looks. I don't think it's the Tinkerer's daughter, but no, Tinker's Marvel. I'm blanking on her. I'm so sorry. And then the most recent one is Deathstroke. Hopefully they will come to a conclusion with the story, with all the Brainiacs that are in play, with Deathstroke's expansion. That is the only thing that I ask for, is that if you're not going to continue it, at least give us a finish. Because when you got to the end of Suicide Squad, it was like that fake, oh, you thought it was over. It's not. And that was the depressing part too. Next one, Indie Darling, but Little Guardsman. Absolutely adorable puzzle, not door management, but town management game. You're Lil, you work in your dad's position at the front gate. You're letting in different monsters, patrol people, citizens, whoever. You're talking to them. You can either let them in the city or decline them based on the dialogues that you do have and the tools at your disposal. I was going to say exposure, but disposal. Using those, decipher what's good, what's going on, and go from there. And then you have this other narrative of potential civil war going on in the castle and who's playing what side, and you got to figure that out as Lil, who just gets sucked up in all this drama that a 10-year-old, I don't remember, does not or should not have to deal with. Highly recommend that one. If you guys know Papers, Please, it sounds like there's a lot of comparisons to that game, but I would highly recommend it. Another one that was fun on the indie side was Haunty. I was wishing for a little bit more of an emotional impact from Haunty, but I did enjoy my time with it. You're a little ghosty. You got to figure out how to move on to the afterlife with your little angel friends. So there's that. There's #Blood. Great animation and #Blood. Cartoon Network style viewpoint and animation throughout. You are Becky Brewster, who just moved into town and discovered that there are vampires afoot messing with things, and you, learning how to be a vampire hunter, need to fight them off with your handy dandy lacrosse stick. Had a great time with Blood. #Blood. Deathbound, another Souls-like. I was very fortunate enough to have the code provided for this game this year, but I had an amazing time with it. I did play this one all the way through as well. This Souls-like was fun and unique because of how its character system works. So throughout the game, you unlock, I want to say 7 or 8 heroes, all with their different all with each their own different backstories and allegiances. So they all kind of bicker at each other depending on what side of the alliances they lay at, which also affects your team composition, because you can have 4 of these heroes equipped in your party at any point. And that's important because that also comes into combat. You can be mid-combo and you can swap for a more powerful move to another member of your party that is equipped, or same thing with dodging, or whatever it may be. But this morphing ability allows you to strategize a little bit more in terms of what you're doing, because each individual character has their own health. So maybe I'm taking a beating with my knight character, I switch over to my javelin wielder. She can handle things now while my other teammate heals before I can swap him back in for a finishing blow. It's a fun game to play. It's got a cool environment and setting with this future sci-fi-esque area in a medieval setting. Had a great time with Deathbound. Highly recommend as well. We touched on Vampire Survivors earlier. Just going to talk about this quickly because I know it's been out for a little while, but it did drop on PlayStation this year. That's why it's in this list. Top-down, pixelated, survive waves. Survive for 30 minutes with all these enemies coming at you. You can boost your stats over time as you level up. Gather your weapons, improve them, eventually morph them into super weapons. Lady and I spent a lot of time in co-op here as well and played that to completion. Astrobot is next on the list. Man, when a game makes you smile and feel all the feels, that is amazing. And that's what Astrobot did for me. Just playing through this platformer, discovering the different little bots that you could rescue from PlayStation's history, and see the little not dioramas, but little setups that they set up for themselves in the home planet and that home area. It was just a lot of fun. Obviously, there's a lot of gimmicks here in terms of the PlayStation controller and the DualSense, different controller gimmicks that you'll play with from time to time. Fun to do. An experience on top of this. No wonder Astrobot won at Keighley's Awards for Game of the Year. Neva is our last indie that we're going to talk about. Absolutely gorgeous game. It's made from the developers of Gree, the hand-painted art style. You are Alba with your dog Neva, this little puppy, and Alba and her main wolf companion, which I don't remember their name, if they even got one. They unfortunately get consumed by darkness, and the older dog passes away. So now Neva, as a puppy, you need to raise them. You go through the full calendar year raising this puppy, battling off the forces of evil, but you see not just yourself, but you see Neva grow into this giant majestical beast and tackle the enemies throughout. It was a really fun adventure to go through. Side scroller, I guess you could say beat 'em up as well, but great time. Highly recommend that, especially if you're not afraid of letting out a good cry. Neva definitely checks the box of an emotional experience. And the last one here for 2024 is a DLC story, is Chaos Reigns for Mortal Kombat 1. While I've been enjoying Mortal Kombat for these past iterations, starting with MKX, Chaos Reigns is more of the same in terms of a good story, in terms of a graphic side of things. NetherRealm does an amazing job with their graphics and animations to really make these games look cinematic. In terms of a reward factor, Chaos Reigns does not deliver for the price point that they were asking. I know I've done a separate podcast there, so that was a little disappointing. Cool to see the new characters involved with the DLC and see some of their origins play out, like the Lin Kuei robots. That was rewarding, but in terms of the remainder of the story that they were presenting, just didn't click, was not great. Felt more of just like, yeah, this is fluff, which is unfortunate. Hopefully they can turn it around when they do eventually move to Mortal Kombat 2 or Injustice 3. Selfishly, I don't think that's going to happen. So, out of 2024, what was my game of the year? Now, I'm in this weird thing, and I think I talked about it last year with Jeff. Also, shout out to Marvel Rivals. Didn't talk about that one. Overwatch with Marvel characters been way more fun than I thought it would ever be. Sorry. I think I talked about this with Jeff, but the thing about Game of the Year is I feel like I need to finish the game completely to give it Game of the Year. So while there's a lot of great titles in this starter section here that I have played, I don't know. And granted, it's my Game of the Year, so who really cares? I don't know if I can give it to something I did not finish. So I'm leaning towards the side where I did beat and finish the game. What one of these titles would I give Game of the Year to? What did I get the most out of playing through the game and thinking about it afterwards? While Astrobot did give me a lot of very warm feelings in my tum-tum, to quote out Simon Miller, I absolutely loved it, and it made me smile ear to ear, seeing the different secrets that they involved in that. I don't know if I want to give it to that. Suicide Squad could have had that potential, but did not stick the landing with a lot of their aspects. I think I need to give the Game of the Year for myself for 2024. I think I got to give it to Neva. Neva, while short, delivered a strong narrative and story without much dialogue, just through the experience of what you and Neva go through in that calendar year to defeat and fight against the goop monsters, the evil that is out there. It was just super rewarding. Like I said, it's an emotional game too, so that hits on a different level, that a game was able to move me that much to make me have an emotional reaction to it. That's saying something. Granted, I could be playing off the year that I had this year with a lot of loss that I did have, but I think that's important regardless of like how these games tap into your personal experiences and make you think. I just think Neva just really stands out from a lot of these games in terms of bringing that extra storytelling to the table. So I'm going to give it to Neva overall, my game of the year for 2024. And just to wrap up real quick, just want to talk about some upcoming releases, whether it's 2025 or beyond, that I am looking forward to. I do have a few here, just really quick. A new Pokemon Legends games has been announced. So we talked about Pokemon Arceus in the last topic. I enjoy the gameplay of Legends Arceus, so to see it in a new game, looking forward to that. Ghost of Yote, the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. Enjoyed my time with Tsushima and just the giant open world there, and the story with Jin Sakai. Looking forward to seeing what Ghost of Yote brings to the table, with it being a big time jump, being a whole new character, seeing how Jin has influenced our new hero here, and what evils that they are going to be going against. Looking forward to that. Judas is another one I'm looking forward to. This is from the Bioshock developer Ken Levine. We've gotten a trailer or two. Once again, Game Awards or Summer Game Fest, it all meshes in. Looks very pretty. Looks OG Bioshock. I want more. Same with Wolverine. We haven't seen that since last year's Game Awards. I know we had the leaks from Insomniac, unfortunately, that did show off some stuff. I did not take part in looking up any of the gameplay or whatnot, but I'm sure they are kind of reworking that game, as we didn't see it this year at the Game Awards, unfortunately. They're probably reworking it. Hopefully it's not too bad, but I am looking forward to what Insomniac brings to the table with this game. We absolutely loved Spider-Man 2 last year, and obviously their previous titles of this most recent one with Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Looking forward to seeing what they bring to the table there, how it's going to play in comparison to Spider-Man. Obviously with the mobility, that's different, so maybe it won't be open world. Time will tell. Last two I have here. First one is South of Midnight. This is an Xbox exclusive title for the moment. It's kind of claymation-esque. I think it's more stop motion. It's got this weird frame rate thing, almost a Spider-Verse, with the main character there. But it's this woman going through these swamps and bayous, and I don't remember exactly what she's dealing with or what the objective is, but it looks gorgeous. It looks really fun. The narrative is there. Not that I can remember right now. Granted, it's almost 1:30 in the morning, but South of Midnight looks really fun. Selfishly want it to come to PlayStation just because that's my ecosystem, but regardless, looks like it's going to be a fun time. Looking forward to that. The last one I'm going to shout out for is an indie title. It's called Mouse P.I. for Hire. The art style here looks gorgeous. It is black and white as like old Steamboat Willie cartoons. First person shooter, just going around as this mouse and just blasting away, trying to take down the evil rat armada. I don't know. Very impressed by the animation style here. I think that's what's captured my attention, along with obviously the black and white. But if you haven't gotten your eyes on Mouse PI, I would definitely do that and wishlist it wherever you can. Well, guys, this has been another episode of the Wait What We Talk About podcast. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast. This is one of my favorite every year, just going through, kind of taking a walk down memory lane about the games we played this year, regardless of release. Just talk about the highlights, yes, the lowlights too, but also share these experiences with you. So maybe if there is a game, because there's a lot of games out there that you might have missed, maybe you can discover what your next game will be and something that really connects with you. So thank you guys for taking the time to watch the podcast or listen to the podcast here. Now I gotta remember where I was in the outro. If you guys ever want to catch the podcast live, you can always go over to twitch.tv/Enigma9011. You could drop a follow over there. You'll get notified if and when we go live, so you join in the fun and conversation with us. But if you can't catch live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video in MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, any way you can support the show, likes, shares, reviews, subscriptions, whatever it is, it may seem small, but if you take the time to do that, we would love and appreciate you for it. Once again, I appreciate you guys hanging out for this episode. Thanks for hanging out with me all this year. I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday season. Hope you guys have a great new year. Looking forward to 2025. Let me know what your game of the year is, whether it is your backlog or something that dropped this year. I'd love to see what you guys have been jumping into. But regardless, once again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you guys on the next one.